Painted goalposts under fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
What's going on, guys, and welcome to Stateside Footy. It's your boy Steve, and let me tell you, man, I gotta be honest with you, motherfuckers, man. It is International Week, and quite honestly, I've been waiting for this since November. Listen, whether it's good or bad, I'm excited that it's back. And to be honest with you, man, we can debate about the roster. We can talk about who should be here, who should be not. But that being said, man, I'm just excited, dude. I'm just excited. And to be honest with you, man, this kicks off the international. I'm going to talk a little bit about Belgium, of course, as we get closer to the Saturday afternoon kickoff. And we're going to talk about potential starting lineups and all that good stuff. And we're going to be talking about what would be constitute as a good window. From that standpoint, man, there's a lot to be, there's a lot to be said here on this channel. So do me a favor, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and all the notification bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming Stateside Footy content. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. I do want to respond to something that was making its way on Twitter today, because quite honestly, I really don't. Apparently on Unfiltered Soccer, Landon Donovan, the great Landon Donovan did make some comments in reference to Noah Kai Banks and his. I don't want to call it offensive. I don't necessarily think it's that. But I guess you can say his. And what I will say is that, number one, I think players are built differently these days. I really do. The difference between past generations is they didn't have social media. They didn't have, they didn't necessarily have the things that would connect themselves to the internet. They didn't have these things that were connecting themselves, to different coaches and some of these other things that make it easy where outside influences have the potential to leak in. I'll just start off with that. Now, I understand both sides of the argument. I really do. When you have a 19-year-old kid who is making a decision, not just for the present, but also for the future, this is something is necessarily going to take 24 hours, and it's not going to take a week. It's probably going to take a month, maybe even longer. He has to decide what is best for his career. Fully understand it. And quite honestly, I'm actually on board with it. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. And I think where U.S. national team fans kind of get upset with a guy like Landon is because, number one, I guess there's a lot to dislike about Landon Donovan, and I can understand to an extent. I totally understand where it's come from. But you're also talking about a dude at 17 years old that committed to the sport of soccer. And he was the guy that burned, like, essentially decided that going to UCLA full ride, which is something that his mom wanted, and his family wanted him to go to college. He had an offer from Germany at Bayer Leverkusen, and he chose to be a professional. He made the commitment. It was not something that it took him a long time to think about it. This is an opportunity for me to make that commitment and start my career in soccer. And so from that standpoint, he is a pure commitment standpoint. It's either you are or you're not. And there is no in between. I don't necessarily think it has anything to do necessarily with being American or being not American or any type of, hints at xenophobia. I don't see that at all. I simply see it as strictly as a commitment issue. And anybody like his fine because he was the one that made the ultimate commitment at a very age. It shouldn't be that big of a deal to a guy like him. And so from that standpoint, I understand both sides of the coin. But what I will say, when it comes to No Kai Banks, U.S. has left the door open for him. And it's not like we're shutting the door of him. I mean, within the next month, he probably could come around and say, you know what? I'm ready to go. Let's go and do this. And maybe we actually see him on the World Cup roster. Maybe he makes that commitment. Or he doesn't. And in any case, I wish him the best of luck. I really do. Whichever way he decides, man, I'm all for it. As much as, don't get me wrong, as much as I want him on my national team, because quite frankly, he has the potential to be, one of those generational talents. I really do believe that. I see this kid and I've seen him play, and I like when you're looking at it just from pure, when you're talking about from just a raw skills situation, that kid's got the goods. 100% this kid's got the goods. And we would be absolutely fortunate and lucky to actually have him. That being said, I recognize that not all kids are created equal, and I do say kid because, quite honestly, he's a kid. He's 19 years old, and exactly how it was when I was 19 years old, I had no fuck I wanted to do. Without a doubt, dude, it changed week by week, and it was really like I can't necessarily blame a kid for wanting to take the time to make sure that he gets his decision correct. So from that standpoint, again, I wish him the best of luck. And I actually found this to be more than a non-starter. Fans really enjoy shit talking Landon Donovan. I get it. Some of his takes are fueled with hyperbole. I totally understand it. So from that standpoint, I don't. I have to take it for what it is. But what I will say is that I totally understand exactly where he's coming from. And I always like to have these discussions based on nuance, because I always try to understand exactly where the person is coming from who's actually saying it, right? So from that standpoint, I get both sides, and I understand where Landon's coming from, and I don't necessarily disagree with them. I just think that with any conversation, there has to be nuance. And, again, selfish me, yes, I do want him on my national team, but it's not going to break my heart if he decides to go elsewhere. All right, let's go ahead and get into it, because there was some cool players that made quite an impression over this last weekend. It's going to be a very short list tonight. And again, we're just going to talk about some names that I think that for those that have tuned into this one have gotten used to. And now the U.S. men's national team is in camp in Atlanta, ready for their match against Belgium on Saturday at 3:30. And of course, that match live streamed here on Stateside Footy. And it's going to be absolutely unbelievable. So I'm looking forward to it. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the striker pool because Flo Balogun continues to be absolutely on fire. And if there was any doubt who our number one is, I think it's been put to sleep because when you look at Flo Balogun and you look over the last 6 matches, he's essentially, I think he scored 5 out of his last 6. And the dude is absolutely coming into the March camp absolutely on fire. I know a lot of people were, pumping up Weston McKennie because quite honestly, he's also been on fire recently over the last month and a half. And there's been that debate about who is the hottest player coming into the March camp. I would probably say it has to be Flo Balogun, and especially in the context of the national team, when you're looking at these 2 matches specifically against Belgium and Portugal, this team is going to have to be aggressive, and this team is going to have to put the ball in the back of the net. And it starts up top of Flo Balogun, as it looks like Monaco Olympic Lyon 2-1. Balogun played 85 minutes. He scored a goal on 5 shots, 3 touches, 16 in the opposition box, 11 to 15 of accurate passes, and that was good for an 8 rating. And when you're looking at strikers, yes, technical ability is certainly a must, but also when you look at the age and you look at where Flo Balogun is at his current age, he is just starting to get into his prime. And that certainly bodes well for the World Cup team because you don't have to worry about whether or not the lights are going to be too big. Now, certainly this is going to be his first World Cup, and so you're going to have you certainly have to ask the question about whether or not whether or not he's ready for the moment. I think he certainly is. For most of these guys, I would probably assume that the second go round, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal, but in the back of your mind, you're kind of wondering, whether or not, some of these guys are going to. But me personally, when I Flo again, the caps that he already has had for the national team, he has played in tournaments, so it's not like this is his first go round when it comes to a tournament. And so I look at this and I'm like, this is, for me, absolutely beautiful. And it wouldn't surprise me if he had himself an absolutely fantastic window against one or both of these teams, and we'll see exactly how that plays out. Ricardo Pepi and PSV lost 3-1 to Telstar. Pepi played 66 minutes. He only created a chance and really only had 21 touches. It wasn't that great of a performance. 12 of 15 of accurate passes, 3 into the final third, 1 of 1 of accurate crosses, 2 of 3 of accurate long balls. And 3 of 3 of aerial ground duels, 1 of 1 of aerial duels. It was a good performance, not a great performance. I rated it out at 7. It is what it is. But that being said, Pep to me is clear cut number 2. Some may have both Balogun and Pepi as 1A, 1B. And if you do, I wouldn't necessarily argue with that. I wouldn't argue with that either. Clearly, the top 2 strikers in our pool can be very lethal on their own. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how these 2 are going to be deployed in this window. But that being said, when I look at this, I'm okay with the performance over the weekend. Would you like to see goals? Of course, but Pepi is going to be fine. Haji Wright and Coventry City lost 2-1 to Southampton. Wright did play 62 minutes, 12 touches, the opposite box, 3 of 5 of accurate passes, and that is all she wrote. Let me check something real quick, just out of curiosity, because I know it's supposed to be hurt. So let's just see something real quick. Yeah, that was his last performance on March 14th. I thought, okay. That's what I thought. Patrick Shimon and Derby County did beat Birmingham City 1-0. Odding played 83 minutes, had 2 chances created, 34 touches, 9 in the opposition box, 7 of 15 of accurate passes, 1 into the final third, and that was good for a 6.5 rating. And Agman has definitely lost a lot, really, over the course of this last month coming into this camp. For a while there in February, this dude was absolutely on fire in the championship, and there was a lot of talk about Derby County potentially going up. I still think Derby County is still in a fairly advantageous position when it comes to the championship. I have no doubt to be a playoff team. Now, whether or not they can actually get through the championship playoffs is yet to be determined. What I will say is that, Patrick, it's going to be interesting to see exactly if he runs out of steam. And we're talking about a dude that started 2025 in Major League Soccer, made the move. Yes, his season started a little late because he had a little bit of a groin injury. But that being said, he's essentially going to be playing soccer for a year and a half. And I'm kind of curious to see whether or not he's going to be able to keep up the pace throughout. And what type or if there's going to be somewhat of load management type situation. I doubt it. Because again, when you're talking about club, they're going to need his production. That being said, I rated him at a 6.5 rating. And it wasn't the greatest performance. And when you're tracking Patrick mainly, it's a while since, he strung together a couple matches where there was that consistency when it comes to goal scoring. As we turn our attention to the forwards, Christian Pulisic and AC Milan did beat Torino 3-2, and Pulisic got back on the score sheet. Did play 77 minutes. He did have an assist, so it's nice to see. Pulisic. I know there was some interesting comments made by his teammates, Rafa Leao, which is actually kind of funny that he's the one that made those comments, but it is what it is. Pulisic is back on the score sheet. 47 touches, 3 in the opposition box, 28 of 35 of accurate passing, 2 into the final third. He did have 2 of 3 of ground duels, which is good for an 8 rating. And Pulisic put together a good performance. And again, one of the things that I think with Christian is that he knows exactly what's on deck when it comes to this national team. And I would probably assume when you look at the Serie A table, AC Milan, whether or not they're going to win the Scudetto, who absolutely knows? But what I will say is that they're a team that's going to be playing Champions League football. And from that standpoint, that's been checked off the list, especially when you consider past World Cup and all that stuff, getting ready for the season. Okay, great. He's going to get back to doing what he wants to do, which is playing at an insanely high level. Okay, that's fine. In the short term, you don't have to tell him how important this shit is. He understands it. And 2026, coming from 2025 to 2026, where he was at one point, one of the leading scorers, and I think at some point he was Serie A's leading scorer. Coming into 2026, he was dealing with small injury. He was at the lineup. When he was getting back, he was dealing with little niggling injuries and some of these other things. And so from that standpoint, 2026 hasn't gone the greatest for Christian. He's the dude that stirs the drink, right? He is the straw that stirs the drink for the national team. You don't have to tell him. He understands. And I would probably assume that we're going to see something close to what we expect Christian to be, especially in this camp, depending on his workload. We'll find out exactly what that workload is going to be. But also when it comes to World Cup 2026, there's 3 or 4 players that for this team to have the success that we think that they're capable of, he's going to have to be one of those guys that takes the team by the neck and actually lean forward. Like, you don't have to tell him anything's happened this year, Christian. I'm like, whatever. As long as he's available for this camp and he's also available for the World Cup, I could care less what his stats are. McKinney and Juve drew 1-1 with Sassuolo. He did play 90 minutes, had 2 chances created, 52 touches, 6 in the opposition box, 25 of 33 of accurate passes, 2 to the final third, 1 of 2 of accurate long balls, 1 of aerial duels, and that was for a 6.5-ish 7 rating. And again, he was playing as a number 10 in matchup. It's interesting exactly how he's being used. I would say for a good portion of it is the position which he's playing, although he has played on the right. He's also played, I guess you can say, that box to box. He's also played up top as a primary striker, depending on availability. So he's been asked to facilitate multiple roles over the last 2 months. S has been, one of Serie A's players, and probably one of the more, attractive commodities in Europe as well, too. So, just like I mentioned with Puli, McKennie is also one of those guys as well, too, that is going to have to, be that leader, be one of those leaders when it comes to World Cup 2026. And listen, you might be able, like, for instance, if, Malik Tillman didn't necessarily have the type window, you might, or the type of performances in this upcoming March friendlies, or even the World Cup, you can potentially get away with it. But what you can't do is have like your core of 3 or 4 drop off the face of the earth and still expect to reach those expectations. You might be able to get away with it with 1 or 2 players. When it comes to the core 4 of what I consider what the core 4 to be, these are going to have to be those type of players that have to be in sync, and these guys are going to have to carry the heavy load. And I'm talking about Balogun, Pulisic, McKennie, probably Gio Reyna, if I'm being perfectly honest. Now that the dust has kind of settled here, Gio is going to have to play a big role, man. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly the maturity of Gio as well, too. Obviously, club this year has been disastrous for Gio, but that being said, it's like, he's back in the national team picture because of what he did in November. And it's going to be interesting. And I think we all have come to agreement that he's going to be one of those guys that the U.S. is going to be relying on. Speaking of Malik Tillman, Bayer Leverkusen drew 3-3 with Heidenheim. He played 82. He scored a goal on 46 touches, 4 in the opposition box, 26-34 of accurate passing, 5 into the final third, 1 of accurate long balls. He also had 4 defensive contributions, 6 recoveries, and that was good for an 8 rating. And it's nice to see Malik get back on the score sheet. I wouldn't say that he's been struggling. I don't think that's necessarily the right word, but when it comes to full production, it certainly has been lacking. Considering the position that he plays, it's also a premium position where goals have to be part of the equation. And I think that this season, him especially making the jump from the Eredivisie to the Bundesliga, I knew there was going to be a little bit of a transition period. At times this season, he's looked phenomenal. And other times you can see that, this first year was going to be a little bit of a growing pain. But that being said, it's when Malik at his best, man, he's one of the best players in Europe. I'm not gonna sit here and say that he's a top 10 Cam. I don't think he's gotten there, but certainly when he's playing at his best, he's certainly noticeable with some of the best 10s across Europe. So not a bad performance into a national team camp. It's going to be interesting to see how these play itself out throughout the week. Obviously, you can probably pencil Balogun up top, Christian underneath to the left, but who's going to be on that right-hand side? Is it going to be Gio? Is it going to be Tillman? Is it going to be McKennie? How is this going to shape out, and who gives this team the best opportunity to score goals? Not just score goals, but also play balls into the box. Who is going to be that guy who is going to be a little bit of a who's going to be that shadow striker that's to draw that defender off, that's going to open up lanes for guys like Christian Pulisic or even having a late box crasher coming down the middle. You know what I mean? It's going to be interesting to see exactly how that plays out. But man, ever since the formation change, all of a sudden, this 10 position has gotten incredibly deep. So it's actually kind of exciting. So let's talk about Gianluca Busio, because Venezia drew 1-1 with Monza. And again, Busio's been phenomenal. God damn it, he's been good. Me personally, I think he's probably one of the best forward players in Serie B. I'm not going to sit here and say he's the best because, quite honestly, I watched a lot of Serie B outside of Venezia, so I couldn't tell you. But that being said, he's pretty good. And when you look at his track sheet and kind of looking over the last couple of months, this dude has actually been playing very good, consistent high-level football. And I thought there could have been an outside chance that Busio gets called in. It's kind of interesting to see exactly how those numbers would work out. But Sebastian Berhalter called in, so what are you going to do? Busio played a full 90. He had 3 chances created, 84 touches, 59 of 70 of accurate passes, 11 into the final third, 1 of 3 of accurate long balls, 8 defensive contributions, 3 tackles, 3 interceptions on the defensive side, 3 of 6 of ground duels. That's good for an 8 rating as well, too. Busio is in goddamn electric. I didn't know whether I didn't necessarily even have him as a bubble player. I wouldn't necessarily even go that far, but I was curious to see exactly if his production would get noticed, even in a league like Serie B, because dude is a standout player. Dude is a very good standout player to the point where it's kind of like, regardless of what happens with Venezia, whether they go up or whether they stay, it's like I think this dude has moved to a higher level up from Serie B, whether that's going to a mid-table Serie A or maybe even going to the French Ligue 1. Who knows? But that being said, it's like I think that he has proven that he's better than the level in which he's playing at. Let's talk about Rukas Pukstas, and Pukstas makes this list again because this dude has been outstanding. This dude has been absolutely out. I understand, when you're playing in the league that he plays in, it's hard to really gauge exactly what that level is comparative. I know that a lot of fans use the MLS comparison, but I actually think it's far below the MLS level. And so you're kind of looking for comparative levels across Europe. But again, Hajduk Split beats Vakanover 91 6-0. Absolutely. Pukstas played 73 minutes, scored a goal, created 3 chances, 55 touches, 10 in the opposition box, 26 of 34 of accurate passes, 3 into the final third, 3 of 4 is successful dribbles, 1 of 2 of accurate long balls. I actually had this rated at 5. And this kid just continues to get better and better and better. I looked at this and was like, dude, I don't think he's a senior national team player at the moment. Considering his age, you're kind of looking at the U23s potentially, or maybe a level below that. But certainly the 2030 cycle, this is going to be a kid that within the next 2 years is going to break into the senior national team, and he's going to be one of those guys that are going to be there for 2030. And by the time that rolls around, he's going to be in that 23-year-old, 24-year range, and he's going to be coming into his prime. And so you're looking at 2020, 2030, 2034 for this kid. And I would probably assume by 2030 he's probably going to be playing at an extremely high level. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly where that next jump is going to be for the kid, because this kid is seriously legit. Tyler Adams and Tanner Tessman and Johnny Cardoso all featured. All 3 had less than, and whatever. It is what it is. What I will say is that, obviously Adams is not in camp. Tessman and Cardoso definitely are. We are going to get into whether or not Koch is going to roll the dice with Tessman as a center back. I doubt it. We are going to do a show on Friday night as we preview Belgium, and so we're going to get into that conversation then. But what I will say is that we're mid at best. But I did want to highlight Aiden Morris because with the Blackburn Rovers. And Morris was actually playing wide, out wide right in this. He is a part of a double pivot with Hayden Hackney. They were playing a 4-1-4-1, and he was out wide. And he played a full 90. He did have one chance. He did create one chance. 103 touches, 83 of 80 of accurate passes, 7 to the final third, 2 of 3 of accurate long balls, 7 recoveries, 7 of ground duels. That was good for a 7.5 rating. And I've been saying this now for a month that Aiden Moore definitely deserved to be in this camp. He's actually in this camp. How he is. The question for me is going to be playing time, because it looks like it's going to be a crowded midfield. I would probably assume that most are probably going to assume that it's going to be Tessman and Cardoso, and you probably could be right. It's going to be interesting to see if Saturday starting 11 is going to be the same against Portugal, or if there's going to be rotation. But that being said, this is a good barometer for Aiden Morris and whether or not he can actually play at this level. And again, we're talking about a championship level player. This isn't Premier League. This isn't La Liga, Serie A, Bundesliga. It's not that. It's still an extremely fast physical league, but it's not on that level. And so now we're talking about this of the best. And when you're looking at this window, specifically Belgium and Portugal, 2 of Europe's better teams, this would be a very good opportunity to find out exactly if he got this level. As much as I want to see Cardoso get 2 starts, I really do, because I actually think this should be a redemption tour for Cardoso. But that being said, it's like I'm kind of looking at Aiden Morris, kind of thinking like, I would really like to see Aiden Morris get some minutes. So I like, it's the unknown. Like it's one thing when you're playing within the CONCACAF region, when you're playing Guatemala and Panama, or maybe in the September window against a South Korea or a rotated Japan. I just think that Aiden Morris has the potential to be a very good international player, and eventually we're going to have to see it. Eventually that is going to have to happen. And I hope hoping it's this window. Turning to wingbacks, Jedi did play 3-1 victory over Burnley. He only played 61 minutes, 52 touches, 4 in the opposition box, 19 to 21 of accurate passes, 2 of 4 of accurate long balls, 7 defensive contributions, 5 tackles, 6 of 11 ground duels, 2 of 3 of aerials. That's good for a 7 rating. Weah did play, didn't necessarily have the greatest game. And Freeman really still hasn't necessarily seen the field. Brian Reynolds actually had a fairly decent weekend as well too, for the most part. Not necessarily a lot to write home about. I've been tracking Jedi since he's coming back, and his first 5 years back were absolutely fantastic. But once he got back into the flow of the Premier League, he's had some up and down performances within the Premier League. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is something that is going to translate, but that being said, I think this break is something that he probably needed. I'll just say that. Center backs. Chris Richards didn't necessarily play this last week. It was last week in the conference league, as Crystal Palace beat AEK Larnance. Richards played 76 minutes, 89 touches, 61 of 66 of accurate passes, 10 into the final third, 1 of accurate crosses, 1 of 3 of accurate long balls, 7 defensive contributions, 2 of 4 ground duels, and that was good for a 7.5 rate. And of course, Chris Richards is probably our most at this stage, probably our most important center back. And so from that standpoint, I like the fact that he's coming into this camp firing in all cylinders. And of course, Mark McKenzie, as Toulouse beat Lorient 1-0. He played 30, had 51 touches, 43 of 44 of back passes, 7 to the final third, 1 of accurate long balls, 4 recoveries, 1 of 1 of aerial duels, and that was good for a 7 rating. Austin Trusty is also in camp, and we talked a little bit at the top of the show about Nokai Banks. And of course, he's not going to be a part of this March roster. And I think he really only played like 54 minutes for Osberg over the weekend. So not a lot to write home about that. And then, of course, our one European goalkeeper, Jonathan Klinsmann, didn't necessarily have the greatest performance either. So from that standpoint, that is the run this week. But I do want to say that it's going to be interesting. And I'm going to be releasing what I consider a good starting lineup against Belgium. And we are going to be going that over. Or maybe we'll do it on Thursday. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow night. Because I definitely want to talk a little bit about this. With the center back, group that is in camp, and really it is Ream, Richards, McKenzie, Robinson, Trusty, and then we have a couple hybrids in there with Alex Freeman and potentially Joe Scally as well too. And it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this fleshes out. But I will say that for instance, if there is a question that we have to ask ourselves is, number one, is the 3-4-2 going to be a permanent formation from this point out? I mean, essentially since, the Japan, the second game of the September window against Japan, and we saw it pretty much all fall. And so that's the question. Number one, is that going to be something that's going to be permanent through the World Cup? Because it is, that's, then it's easy kind of, I wouldn't say it's easy to predict starting 11, but it gives you a little bit of a barometer of how it's going to be played. If it is opponent dependent and that team goes with a back four, then Tim Ream has to be out of that back four, and you're looking at Chris Richards and Mark McKenzie. If it's a back three, and when you're looking at Jedi as a wing back, one of the things that you cannot do is have your wing back essentially covering because the left side center back doesn't have the pace in 1v1 situations where you're kind of to keep wing back drop, maybe a potential little deeper to make sure the outside shoulder is covered. And so from that standpoint, you're kind of looking at Mark McKenzie on the left side with Ream more of a central area, and then maybe Chris Richards on the right-hand side. One of the things that I have to, I essentially have gotten used to is the idea that Ream is going to be a part of the starting 11. Whether we all agree that his best days are behind him, it just is what it is. I think we've gotten to that point where we have to just accept that, when it comes to trust, Poch trusts. But that being said, you can do yourself a solid by putting him in a position where it's going to be a little bit less of a liability. And so from that standpoint, you're probably going to have to, play a guy like Mark McKenzie on the left-hand side, which he actually has, some experience in that in Toulouse. As a matter of fact, I would probably go on to say that, plays a bulk of his playing time. This last weekend, it was on the right side, but generally he's on the left-hand side. And so from that standpoint, he does have that experience. Now, whether or not it's translated, to the international level, because, quite frankly, under Pochettino, he really hasn't had a lot of minutes. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how that back three is going to shape out. Or is this going to be like a Ream on the left, Richards middle, and McKenzie on the right, or a Miles Robinson on the right, or a potential Freeman, Scally, McKenzie type of situation on the right? Who knows? But we're going to get into that in our pre-match, our pre-match show. I am going to give my single in. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about what is going to be considered a successful window. Is it, is losing one of these two going to be considered okay? Is this we have to win both? Is 2 draws going to be considered a successful window? And I'm kind of curious to know exactly what you guys feel would be a successful window. What are your expectations of this team? And I'm curious to know. So why don't you go ahead and leave that in comments? Because me personally, I just kind of want to know how you guys feel about this. So let me know. But that being said, I think we're all absolutely just excited that the national team is back. It's been forever and a day. That's because it has been. And now we're getting into that, into that nitty-gritty, and we're less than 100 days now out from the World Cup. And we're going to find out who is going to be that third opponent because of that. This is the UA playoffs. So we're going to find out if this is going to be, Kosovo or, who else is in that? Kosovo, Turkey is in that one. Let's find out. I think, just out of curiosity, yeah, it's going to be Turkey, Romania, Slovakia, and Kosovo. There it is right there. So let's see, March 26th, which is going to be tomorrow, we have Turkey versus Romania and Slovakia versus Kosovo. And then the winners will meet, and that is going to be who decides who's going to be that last participant in our group. And even if it is Turkey for old folks like me, I still think I'm pretty confident in our ability. So we're going to get into that as well too. So again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's been fun. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening. I will be back tomorrow as we get set, man, for the pre-match build-up. U.S. versus Belgium, and of course Saturday, the match will be live streamed here on Stateside Footy. And I got to be honest with you guys, as somebody that has followed that team since essentially 1989, every World Cup year, man, something I just catch the bug, man. I just love it. I remember being a little boy when Italia 90 came through, and watching the team play, Slovakia and Italy, World Cup 94. Even the dreaded World Cup 98, which was shit. But there's something about this country, our ability to play the game, our rightful place in the global picture when it comes to this game, and like it's something that I'm gonna carry for the rest of my life, because it's that, for me at least, it's that important. So listen, it's going to be great, and excited too. That's all I'm going to say. I hope you guys are that excited, because this is an opportunity to get on home soil, and we have no idea when next one of these are going to be. And so from that standpoint, man, I hope you guys realize how special this is going to be, not just for the national team, but also for this country and also the sport in this country as well too. A lot of things are at stake with this World Cup. So I will say that, man, I'm absolutely excited, and we will know within the first 10 minutes against Belgium what this thing is going to look like. Of course, we can't predict the future. But that being said, there's going to be a lot of tells, and it's going to be there a very good outlook in that first 20 to 25 minutes, or we're going to see potential lapses. So we'll see, man. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Again, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button way out, because that's what this channel is fucking growing. It's growing. And sure enough, man, when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, when it comes to this World Cup, man, I'm so looking forward to it. And it's not just going to be the U.S. men's national team. I do some cool stuff with some European teams as well too. So it should be just an overall exciting World Cup 2026. So you guys enjoy your evening. I will see you tomorrow night. Take care, guys. Good night.
Rusted goalposts under fading skies, tattered flags waving dreams in our